I'm here interviewing the security guard at the strip bar that I work at, and there's a lot of talk on the internet about all the violence and what have you that dancers or strippers experience in strip bars, and I wanted to get your perspective as far as people that get hurt the most often. Who would you say gets hurt the most often? Customers, male employees, or female employees?
Well, to put it honestly, it's the male employees that get hurt most because we get caught up in the middle of everything that goes on there, right or wrong. I mean, these girls end up in situations that we have to get them out of, and these guys are persistent. They do not want to leave them alone.
Mm-hmm.
They get a little abusive, combative sometimes with the girls, and we have to interject and take care of them. And when we do, that's when the problems arise. I've already had my wrist broken at that club once, and I don't think I want to go through that again.
Do you find that? Do you find that violence between customers and the dancers is common?
No, it's not really common, but you do have a few of them that have a sense of entitlement that they think that just because they are who they are, that they're entitled to get what they want from these girls, and that's not entirely true.
And give me a rough estimate in your opinion. Like how often do you run across a situation like that where you have to deal with that? Like once a night, once a week,
About maybe 4 times a week.
4 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And as far as any injuries dancers sustain, would you say that comes from customers or from maybe getting fights with other dancers?
Yeah, the dancers end up hurting themselves, actually.
Mm-hmm.
They end up arguing over customers, and they have their little disputes, and they end up getting into the shoving matches, fist fights, and that's how the girls end up getting hurt, fighting amongst themselves.
Okay. Okay. And so you said you've had your wrist broken before. Can you tell me about that incident?
Well, one guy we kicked out because he had a sense of entitlement, thought he could get away with what he wanted to. We asked him to leave. He didn't want to leave. When he did go out, he started blurting out racial slurs at myself. We ended up getting into a combative fight, and the bouncer that was working at the time was assisting me. And when he swung at the guy, because the guy was swinging at me, my hand got caught between both of them, and he fractured my wrist at the time. And that was our doorman. It was accidental, but it happens. These are, the hazards of the job.
Okay. Would you say that there is more more of these situations in the strip bars, or that it's pretty much as common as in any other kind of bar, or less common?
I think it's less common, as you can pretty much hear from the news. Most regular clubs have more stabbings and fights than we've had at our club. I've been there maybe a little over 2 years. Only been involved in 3 fights.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that says a lot. I mean you pay attention to the news and you know you hear the stories, stabbings, fights, gang fights at different clubs, and we pale in
Okay.
comparison to that.
Okay. And you're have you had any experiences with having to deal with weapons
Weapons,
here at this club?
only one. A gentleman who came back from overseas was suffering
Overseas
from
is in
Iraq,
okay. Uh-huh.
and well, apparently he was suffering from PTSD. We threw him out of the club because he was combative with everybody. When we took him out, pulled out a knife on the floor manager and myself. Had to take him down. I had to draw my weapon. It came down to the point, he's begging me to shoot him. I recognize the fact that he's trying to commit suicide by cop, so
Oh.
we
Okay.
dealt with him accordingly. We had him taken into custody, and we had him evaluated.
Do you know whatever came of that? Was he?
Actually, he was diagnosed with PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
They had to notify his family up in North Carolina so they could get him out and get him the help that he needed.
Okay. Well, that's pretty much all the time we have. I just have one last question. if there's one thing that you want the world to know about your job as a security guard in a strip bar, it could be anything. What would it be?
Well, being there at the club, I've heard every stereotype about me, rent a cop, whatever. Not a problem. Understand one thing. I am there for their protection, the safety of the club and the patrons in there, not to mention the dancers first and foremost and the staff. But for me to be called a rent-a-cop, I'm not trying to be a cop. I'm just trying to maintain the order and the decorum there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I've ever wanted from these people, is to recognize that I'm just a person there. I'm just security. I'm nothing more. And I'm not trying to say that I deserve, have a sense of entitlement that I want to be called something else. I am who I am. I do my job as efficiently as I can. And I let my record speak for itself. 3 fights in 2 years, I mean, that says a lot.
Oh, you know what? I thought of one more question for you. And when you hear of people speaking in disrespectful ways about the girls that work in the strip bar, particularly the ones that you know, I mean, does that affect you?
Oh, yes, most definitely. A lot of these girls there, they're just like you and me, trying to earn a living, trying to make ends meet. For me to hear these guys come out and to call them, be blunt about it, bitches and hoes and stuff like that, not really necessary. These people are humans. They're trying to earn a living like me. We're there, we do our job, and we just want to get out of there. We don't want any strings attached. We just want to get in and out. That's all we do.
And do you find that it's more common for men to have a negative opinion of the women in there, like the customers? Do they more often have a negative opinion? Do they more often just look at it as a job and they're there to have fun? Do you find most of the customers to be decent people, or do you find most of them to be scum, personally?
I find about 3/4 of them are pretty much scummy about it. I mean, I see these places, and I explain to the guys, because they all come to me, oh, you have the best job. No, I don't have the best job. I have one of the crappiest jobs, because I see these young ladies and they're trying to earn a living, and these guys try and degrade them, and they say, well, it must be nice to work in this club and look at all these young girls. Well, it's like I tell them, it's perspective. One day when you get old enough and you have your own daughters, your perspective is going to change. I see these young ladies in there like my children. They're like my daughters. I try and take care of them the best that I can. I try and guide them in the right direction. I don't mislead them. I don't talk down to them. I don't like when the guys do that. When I hear them do that, I'm kicking them out of the club. I don't want them in the club. I don't want them disrespecting the girls like that. They're trying to earn a living, and that's all they're trying to do. So for these guys to expect anything more, that's their fantasy. Probably the way they were brought up, that's what they expect, but it's not that way.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate your time.
Not a problem. Anytime.